Hello, and welcome to the next lecture for our class, which would be our lecture on set design. I hope everyone is doing okay and staying inside and washing your hands and doing all those other fun things that come along with dealing with a pandemic. This will begin our next lecture series today. This will be a 15-minute section. It may not get us all the way through set design, but we want to get started on that. That way we can start taking some notes on what will be your reports, and I will follow up with that. Okay, so this is set design. This section is called Setting the Stage. It is a conglomeration of my work, my research notes, and other past publications that deal with set and stage design. It is a background that I also have as well. In fact, this one here is from a play that I directed at Harbor Playhouse. I directed and designed there back in, 2005, a while back. Anyway, so this one is set design on setting the stage. Okay, so the set designer is someone who has a lot of focuses in mind, and typically is someone who will have a lot of things in front of them, because the what some people call it problems in set design, or solving problems in design, because the challenges that come with a set designer are very plentiful, because it is dictated by the view of what the director is looking for. It is dictated by what sort of space the play will be performed in. It is dictated by, will this play be traveling, touring? Will the play be running for a very long time, 6 months or a year? Or are we just looking at a couple of weekends? And then, of course, the other culprit is money, budget. How much money is there for the design? It's important to be familiar with the different goals of the set designer, or the focuses of the set designer, and these are listed here on the bullet points. The goal of really creating the world of the play is really the overall mindset of a set designer, and these are some of the breakdowns that includes. One of the first things is establishing time and place. What time of day is it? What time in the world is it? What world are we in, and what time is it in that world? Do we always get that information? Not all the time. Sometimes it may be rather vague or abstract. Now, I'll remind you to remember our design styles that we've talked about. Realism, surrealism, and abstract, and I'll go ahead and reiterate those right now. Realism is when you walk into the theater and what you see on the stage, you feel like it could be a place that you could live in. It's very realistic, you recognize everything there, and it's relatable to you. Surrealism is when you walk into the theater and what you see on the stage you recognize, but you're not really sure what it's being used for, or you notice that it's being used for something different. The best example of surrealism is Salvador Dali. If you've seen any of his work, if you have not, Google it. Salvador Dali's Persistence of Memory is one to look at, which you probably have seen. He was famous for surrealism in that he would take images, ideas, and objects that we recognize in our real world, and they would be used for things other than what they were intended to be used for. Like the clock that is melting like water, like the chest of drawers in the shape of a woman's body, and things of that nature. So do some looking around at that style. It's very exciting and mysterious and interesting and powerful. And then, of course, there is abstract, which means you see what you see on stage and you don't necessarily recognize what's in front of you. These would be shapes, movements, something on the, you say, okay, that's kind of a weird square looking shape. What is it doing in this world? We may not actually know. In the world of set design, however, by the end of a play, you should understand why it is there. So creating time and place, creating mood. that feeling that you get when you walk into the theater and sit down. What is the mood? What is it saying to you? Providing an environment that embodies the characters' lives. For example, I'm not just going to design an apartment back in 1940s. I'm going to design an apartment in the 1940s that belongs to the person who is the character in the play. It's like if I go to any one of your homes or apartments, which right now it's probably a little disarrayed and piled up, of course, like my home is. But if I walked in, I would learn a lot about you. If I walked into your room, I'd say, okay, you read a lot, you're a gamer, you like unicorns, I don't know, things like that. I would understand what your world is like. And so it's the things that talk to us from the world that can be important as well. Helping to tell the story, it does that by embodying the character's life and how it moves along. The movement of the play, how the design moves throughout the story. Does it fly in? Does it move around? Is it rolling? What are the physical, technical aspects of it that embody the play? Presenting a visual metaphor for the director's concept. That basically means presenting, symbolism, things of that nature. Defining the style, one of the styles we talked about. It could be one or a mixture of those styles. It could be a mixture of realism and surrealism. Determining the relationship between the audience and the dramatic action. That could be whether the play is in a different type of space, a proscenium space, we've talked about that, where audience is on one side, stage on the other, or in a three-quarter, three sides are covered by the audience, or in an arena. Expressing the director's point of view is another, and then of course solving practical design problems that are needed by the designer and director. The process of a set designer is very similar to the processes that we will speak about with the following designers after the set designer. Obviously, they have to be very familiar with the script of the play. They have to understand what the play says from the script, and then in collaborating with what the director wants to pull from that translation, they need to really have a strong understanding of that. Typically, when a set designer reads a play, they read it first like they would you or I sitting down reading a story, getting the story, and then they have following readings that would help them be reminded of or thinking about the technical requirements. Someone breaks a window, we've got to have a window on stage. Someone falls downstairs, we got to have stairs. Some of those physical things that must occur. Meeting with the director, creating sketches. The set designer will create sketches as they go along, and I'm going to show you examples of all of these in these parts to follow for set designer. But the sketches are kind of like ideas or inquiries about what this play could look like on stage. A lot of these sketches, called thumbnails, start out to really be just kind of brainstorming ideas, but when the director starts to meet with the set designer will start to kind of scribble down some more solid looking concepts. In discussion, as the designer is working out the details with the director, once they decide on those, they will go to something called a ground plan. A ground plan is an aerial view of the set design. That means if you're floating above the set, what does that set look like on stage? Models, creating printed out models or created models with things like foam core and other crafts. The model is like a smaller scale version of the set design, and I'm going to show you examples of all of these. I just want you to know what these terms are. Perspective drawings are the drawings that are from the audience's viewpoint. If you're sitting in the audience and you drew a picture of the set on that stage, what would it look like? That is exactly what a perspective drawing is. It's a viewpoint or perspective from the audience. Blueprints is a term that is fading away from our lives. I do throw it in there, but really we don't deal with blueprints very much. It's a process of being able to copy ground plans, but the ground plan that we use today is usually printed out now with computers, things of that nature. We don't have to use the copy blueprints. But a blueprint is typically a model, a ground plan or perspective drawing that is done on that type of material. Providing budget materials is the next process. Understanding what it may cost in order to do a set design, giving a director and or producer the idea of what is this project going to be, what is it going to cost, and understanding how those materials are utilized. A set designer should understand all the building materials, just like a costumer should understand all the materials that could be utilized in costuming, if for any reason knowing what they cost. The next is working with the technical director. This is the person in charge of all the technical elements of the process of the build. That would be carpenters, properties people, charge artists. A charge artist is someone who paints scene designs and things for a set designer. A lot of times that can also be a set designer. And of course there's many other artists that they would work with. So let's look real quick at the principles of composition. This is important in design when we're talking about how to put something together. That to compose is to put something together. You may think about someone who is a writer of music, how they pull things together. That's kind of the idea, is to compose, to pull together, to put together. But composition is its own term in our list of elements, and so this may take us to our end of our part 1, but let's try this. The principles of composition, the first one is focus. And focus is basically, where does the set design make my eye as an audience member look? Where does the audience member focus when I look at a set design? The next one is the balance. Do I feel like when I walk into the theater, when I'm looking at the picture, the stage picture, what is on the stage, does it feel like it is evenly balanced? A great example is when you would take pictures with your family on vacation, and you would take the pictures and you were like, okay, I need to balance out who's in the picture. Those ideas can help you understand balance. Proportion is there a weight as far as someone being closer to the camera or further away from the camera? This can help show scale. Scale is a comparison of size, and I'll show you some scale examples later in the lecture. And then of course rhythm is, does it feel like all of the elements on stage, do they feel like that they have some sort of movement together, or what is that movement? Does that movement help with proportion? Does it help with focus? Sometimes that's a physical movement, and sometimes when I just look at something, it gives me the feeling of a movement, and that's kind of a rhythm that is interesting to note in the composition principles as well. And then of course the last one is unity. When I look at the stage, do I feel like all of these things in front of me belong together? Even though I have a nuclear warhead in the living room for a comedy in an apartment in New York, does the style or the idea, design idea style fit in, or is it unified with that? Or do we feel like, is it painted, are the colors, what is it about this world that unifies it? And that's something to think about in that process of unity. So that brings us to our visual elements of design. As you notice, number 3 was composition, and I just explained that to you. But line, mass, texture, and color are the next ones. And I'm going to go ahead and stop there, and I think what I'm going to do is that I'm going to continue. So this will end part 1 to get us going for set design.